A very good morning to all the audience and the esteemed experts on the virtual dais. It has indeed been a great pleasure as to the number of people who have been joining us for the last four webinars of the National Webinar Series on SLD through Facebook and YouTube. Light is a universal symbol of truth, knowledge, and understanding. A lighted lamp is considered an auspicious symbol. Let us start this webinar with our traditional auspicious lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to
गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कवित्तजम्बो बलसारभक्षितम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणम् नमामि विघ्नेश्वर पादपङ्कजम् नमामि विघ्नेश्वर पादपङ्कजम्
As a part of the national webinar series on SLD organized by AIWEFA, we have so far been able to complete the following webinars: Gift of Dyslexia, an effective brain with a difference; Dyscalculia and Dyspraxia, why can't they understand me? Dysgraphia and Dyslexia, wish humans had not created reading and writing; the assessment tools towards constructive diagnosis. And today's webinar will be on reflections, voices from families, schools, and the SLD. I am Professor Renu Malviya, Secretary, AIWEFA, and Professor at the Department of Education, Lady Irwin College, University of Delhi. We have with us Asha Chandra, our President of AIWEFA, All India Women's Education Fund Association. I take this opportunity to say a few words about Asha Chandra before I hand over the virtual platform to her and request her to give the welcome address and enable us to know more about AIWEFA. An advertising professional, Asha Chandra's expertise spans multimedia platforms. Having worked with the world's leading advertising agencies, J. Walter Thompson and Ogilvy and Mayather, and as a short filmmaker and writer, she brings a target-oriented, all-encompassing approach to the social sector. The president of the 93-year-old All India Women's Education Fund Association, AIWEFA, MS Chandra, has been the governing body chairperson of Lady Irwin College. Lady Irwin College was founded by AIWEFA in 1932. Asha Chandra steered AIWEFA during the difficult COVID pandemic, when physical interaction had come to a standstill, to activities that we could do using technology and the online mode. It is through this foresight that AIWEFA has been able to increase its activities for women empowerment, community development, and education across the country and amplify its presence globally. MS Asha Chandra.
Namaskar, dear friends. Special greetings to all our participants and the eminent panelists who have joined us. On this warm day, in fact, Delhi is experiencing a heat wave when summer has come early. AIWEFA presents the fifth and final webinar of the National Webinar Series, Specific Learning Disabilities, SLD Dyslexia. I am happy to share that this series has been creating waves amongst families, faculty, experts, students, and communities. I also take this opportunity to present some interesting nuggets about AIWEFA. 93 years ago, the doyens of the Free Day movement, Sarojini Naidu, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Aruna Asaf Ali, and many, many others recognized that the only route to women's advancement was education. Accordingly, the All India Women's Education Fund Association was set up in 1929. Under the first three presidents of IWEFA, the vicereines, Lady Dorothy Irwin, Lady Marie Willingdon, and Lady Doreen Linlithgow, the organization founded Asia's first home science college, the Lady Irwin College, in 1932. And Mahatma Gandhi conferred the college slogan, Shiksha Hi Seva. In the last 93 years, through the college, IWEFA has educated almost 80,000 women. And since the 1990s, the organization, through its own outreach programs, has empowered nearly 52,000 women, youth, and communities. Combined with academic excellence, the initiatives include grassroots projects and capacity building programs for the holistic development of all sections of society. While acknowledging that education is the catalyst for change, the organization recognizes economic empowerment as the second pillar to achieve women's advancement. Accordingly, IWEFA has held several conferences, one of them being Transformation of Women from Education to Full Employment. Webinars, programs for 6,000 participants have built the resilience of people with disabilities and senior citizens through empowering their families. Skills have been developed for lifelong learning, and intergenerational bonding has been developed to promote a culture of peace. To substantially increase the number of qualified teachers from higher education institutions, including through international cooperation, the organization has developed the systems approach model. This replicable and scalable model promotes inclusive learning, offers skills for employability, ensures leadership and resilience to build back better, enhances the use of technological tools and communication mechanisms, and advocates mindful choices. To develop a green economy at community level, the organization is conducting a pilot research project to explore economic empowerment and entrepreneurship avenues among 900 women who have undergone Care India's training in 30 villages in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. To regenerate several native species which were lost from Delhi's forests, the organization, with the Department of Forest and Wildlife and Bombay Natural History Society, has participated in a plantation drive in nurseries that are being developed over about 3 hectares of land in Tughlakabad, Delhi. The college interns, college faculty, IWEFA executive, and AIWC representatives have all contributed towards this greening of Delhi. The experiences gained from grassroots projects have guided IWEFA's pandemic response and recovery programs towards ensuring gender equality while also safeguarding the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. At the international level, the organization was conferred with special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, ECOSOC, in 1999. In 2003, the role of regional coordinator for the United Nations Non-Government Informal Regional Network, UN-NGO IRENE, the organization accepted this role. And in 2017, the observer status was accorded with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. These recognitions provided the organization with an opportunity to integrate national and international concerns through consultation, cooperation, and coalition in the larger international arena of the United Nations. This national webinar series is in line with our work for the Nina Sibbal Award. Instituted in 2003 to recognize organizations working with disabilities, the award acknowledges their contribution in this area with a grant of rupees 8 lakhs along with a citation and trophy. Held annually for the last 20 years, we are hoping that the award presentation, as has been the norm earlier, will take place at the India Habitat Center on 2nd of August 2022 from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The form for the application is being shared on our website. It will be up there in a day or two. And you can also fill it up through social media and through the mail. And we look forward to applying or disseminating it further. It is our intention that the findings of this webinar series are reported in a substantive publication. We hope to release this seminal work at the India Habitat Center, the venue of the 20th Nina Sibbal Memorial Award ceremony on 2nd of August later this year. It is now my proud privilege to welcome our eminent panelists for today, Mr. Arun Fernandez, Dr. Anuradha Joshi, Ms. Nupur Junjunwala, Dr. Himanshu Das. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you, Asha Chandra. One feels so proud to be associated with All India Women's Education Fund Association, AIWEFA, and its remarkable inheritance and stupendous current position. AIWEFA feels proud that the most eminent experts from the field, pan-India and some from abroad, have joined us on the various webinars of the National Webinar Series on Specific Learning Disability, Dyslexia. We are also so fortunate that a large number of audience wanting to listen to these eminent experts have joined us through YouTube and Facebook. Specific Learning Disability, SLD in India, is the umbrella term for special needs such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and developmental aphasia. In most countries, specific learning disability, SLD, often referred to as dyslexia in the common terminology, was officially recognized and it was documented in their acts and policies related to disability and special needs decades back. However, India was a little late in introducing specific learning disabilities in its acts and policies. It was accepted only in the recent Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016 as a disability and hence one which needs special needs. Further, the recent but powerful NEP 2020 insists upon inclusion, learner-centered pedagogy, and engagement of all stakeholders. NEP 2020 is a wonderful policy in the sense that it accepts and endorses what the earlier acts and policies such as RPWD Act 2016 have recommended. In other words, NEP 2020 encourages diversity to be celebrated and not frowned upon. So this is the appropriate time to get the voices of the parents and the family of the child with SLD be heard and brought to the public platform, as also the ruminations of the teachers, the academic administrators and managers who with their experiences and expertise and sensitivities have walked the path with not one, but many of these often misunderstood children with SLD, commonly addressed as dyslexic. Also, How can we just not listen to this bright child or a bright young adult who is average or above average in intelligence, and yet the education system and society at large has failed him or her by not being able to look and elicit the strengths and potentials in them, but rather engulf them into an educational psychosocial system which only seems to be existing for creating hurdles to their learning and skill development. Imagine knowing you have the skill, but there is something restricting you, and the world keeps telling you in different ways you are stupid. The difficulties that the individual goes through is not visible, it's not visual, and so others can't see it. So, in the case of neurodevelopmental disabilities such as SLD, how does one enter the brain of these differences? And how does a dyslexic enter your brain and see the differences in how you process information and construct knowledge? To top it all, research again and again indicates that there are about 10 to 15% of individuals who are dyslexic thinkers. That really is a large number to be thrown out of the basket. Oops. Oops, my head is going for a spin. It's too difficult and complicated. I'm just going to leave it to the stakeholders and the eminent experts on the dais who are deep, thick into the complications and gifts of dyslexia to let us peep into the world of the individual with SLD, are dyslexic. So, over to the webinar 5, Reflections, Voices for Families, Schools, and the SLD. It is my proud privilege to introduce Dr. Anuradha Joshi. Anuradha Joshi is the principal of Sardar Patel Vidyalaya. Since the last 15 years, prior to this, she has contributed to various renowned educational institutions across India as a principal for a total of 27 years. She has co-authored various books for CBSE on life skills. She has served on the governing body of National Council of Teacher Educational Research and Training. She has also served as a member of the All India Council for Technical Education, and she's worked with SPICNECE and IIT for outreach programs. And our current project is with Jal Jeevan Mission on creating India's first virtual museum on water for children. Amazing. The Honorable President of India bestowed her with the National Teachers Award 2015, which is constituted by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, MHRD, at Vigyan Bhavan. So wonderful. As the head of school in Sardar Patel Vidyalaya, she has endeavored to work with the philosophy of the institution and steered it towards making it an even more stronger institution, widening the scope of learning to make it more contemporary. She has nurtured students to excel in sports and performing arts, seeking excellence in academics. During her tenure, some of them have gone on to represent the country with distinction. Such a school administrator we need for our children with disabilities and diversity. Welcome, Anuradha Joshi. I also have the privilege to introduce Ms. Nupur Junjunwala, a lifelong advocate of building equitable and inclusive societies. Nupur Junjunwala has extensive experiences in impacting national and global goals for gender equality and women empowerment, financial inclusion and economic development, education, digital inclusion, and accessibility. Through our extensive experience of working across multiple geographies with intergovernment organizations, state government, as well as the several governments of India ministries, she has successfully influenced regulation, negotiation, finally, sustainable multi-stakeholder partnerships, and implemented innovative businesses models to drive large-scale impact. Most recently, she led partnerships for UN Women India, where she engaged with civil society, government, and private sector to promote gender equality and women empowerment. She's the co-founder and trustee of Chain I&KK, an organization committed to working on causes of inclusion of persons with disabilities, gender equality, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Chain I&KK is committed to working with diverse stakeholders, including youth, private sector, civil society, and government to ink sustainable changes. She is the parent of a teenage daughter who was diagnosed with SLD at age 8 years. A much needed voice that we want to hear. Welcome, Nupur Jinjinwala. It is my also my very proud privilege to introduce Mr. Arun Fernandez. Arun Fernandez, the founder of DLearners, tells us that he was not always the confident person he is now. I can't believe this. Being a child with dyslexia, he was mocked by his perceived inabilities and oddities. However, he chose to take the correct steps following his diagnosis, which, as all reports of children with SLD indicate, that they are intelligent or above average in intelligence. He completed his BCom, MSW, MBA from Loyola College, Chennai, and he also taught in the same college as a lecturer. Little did his peers know he was to become a living example of the fact that dyslexic thinking is a strength and not a weakness. And today, his initiative, supported by a dedicated team, strives to help the 35 million children with SLD in India and 20% of the children worldwide. DLearners offers a solution that identifies SLD and conducts intervention programs using assistive technology, is a savior to these children with SLD. Currently pursuing his PhD, Arun is an inspiration to them. He vouches that the challenges of dyslexia can be overcome and that the condition can prove to be a boon much more than it is considered a curse. I wait with, uh, with a lot of anticipation to listen to you. Welcome, Mr. Fernandez. A very good morning, Dr. Himanshu Das. It is a pleasure to have the person who is a role model for people across span disability sector. I was planning to introduce him later, but I cannot stop myself. And so I am going to, he actually needs no introduction whatsoever, but I am going to still take this advantage of being on the dais. Dr. Himanshu Das holds a PhD in special education and master's in special education, psychology, social work, education, and English, and currently the director of National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Visual Disability, Dehradun, and the former director of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay National Institute of Persons with Physical Disability, New Delhi. He was previously serving as the director of National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Multiple Disabilities and director in charge of National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disabilities, Secunderabad, under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. He has been instrumental in establishing composite regional centers for persons with disabilities in 6 states, namely Kerala, Uttar Pradesh, Sikkim, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Meghalaya, and Maharashtra. He was a visiting faculty at Rohantham University and Charles University as part of the Erasmus Mundus European Union program. He has also visited Australia for collaboration scope study. He brings 23 years of extensive experiences in the field of disability rehabilitation, from clinical, administrative policies, schemes, community research, and academic perspectives. He has experience of working at the government and NGO sector, grassroots and high level of management for both academics and service delivery aspects of disability rehabilitation. He is mentoring uh, a project of cross disability early intervention centers guiding the Kiran National Mental Health Rehabilitation Helpline, and is adapting the Naidisha Resilience Development Model for different categories of disability, siblings, parents, and so on. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Himanshu Das with us. Now, let me take back. Welcome, Dr. Himanshu Das. Let me take advantage of being here, and as the moderator and the discussant, I can ask as many questions as I like. So let me put the first question to the principal of one of the best schools. Uh, this is the only time I'll get to actually ask a principal of such eminence so many questions. So let me take advantage of that. Uh, Anuradha Joshi, how come when I come to your school, when I've seen this, I find that the teachers are so comfortable with children with neurodiversities such as SLD in your school? What do you do? What do your teachers do which is so different? Do you people eat a different diet?
I wish it was as simple as that, Renuji. Uh, I'd like to take you back on a little bit of history. We have a very, very well established early intervention program, and it was established almost 40 years ago by some of the leading luminaries in the field of education, uh, Dr. Bindu Prasad and Mrs. Vibha Parthisarthi. We have built on the wonderful setup by these creative and forward thinking individuals with regular workshops and learning programs of techniques as well as new skills that have come up during various times. And through these long years of reiteration, we have come to a point where it is second nature to teachers to accept all differences. So, if I could say, yes, it was planned for early intervention, and it is the richest with 2 special educators and 600 children in junior school. This is supported by regular workshops, as I told you. But there are two things in addition which make a difference. One, our primary school, it is a local language or Hindi, which is a means of communication. That affords comfort to all, where we build on acceptance and build on sensitivity, where words don't fail us for expression. So, when I talk about teachers, it's second nature to all teachers to for our pupils to be unique, whether it is culturally, whether it is academically, whether it is from the socio-economic point of view. And it is clear that needs of all children, who are the very center of our universe, need to be addressed. This leads to greater acceptance by parents and children, and acceptance with sensitivity of all differences of individuals, sowing the seeds of deep and strong bonds. When parents feel comfortable, when children feel comfortable, there is greater uh, communication, and things are not brushed under the carpet. When parents feel that they will find support in school, they are more open about things. It's not just that, it is peer acceptance too. So there is a program, and a very marked program, where peer acceptance is worked into all our systems and programs, and the classes then become wonderful ideas and of brotherhood or sisterhood
Absolutely.
and peer support. We also have a very strong emphasis on building skills rather than learning of content. All of this helps us in our early intervention and in our developing children as accepted models. Contrary to what people say, I like to think of it as non exclusion and not inclusion.
Wonderful. Uh, Thank you. And I know from students who say if there's an issue, we can just walk into Joshi ma'am's room. So they feel so comfortable. And I have heard that some of the students actually came and said that, are you dyslexic? And that was
Yeah, that was a funny incident. It's the norm in school where teachers work with students, and there is usually one or two that is left to me where they've tried everything and then they say, ma'am, this one is yours. I had one such case a few years ago, which is really funny, which I could share perhaps. This young boy had been scoring about 49% in all his pre board and such exams and was keen to do well, but didn't know how and didn't have the motivation. So he was sent across to me. And on a whim, I told him that, I expect a 94 from you, and this is how we can get there. When the result came, lo and behold, sometimes the guru's vani comes true. The young fellow actually had a 94%. He came to school early in the morning at about 8:30, just as the school opens during vacations, and in his pajamas and t-shirt and chappal, completely forgetting uh, any kind of thing other than to reach across
protocol.
the office. Right. And once he came into the office is when he realized he wasn't even dressed for school. But he was so overwhelmed by the fact that the prediction was 94 and he got 94. When he plonked on the chair in front of me, he asked me, are you dyslexic? Did you read it the other way around? I said, no, I'm not, but I had faith in you. But have you told your parents? So that's where that story comes from. Thank you.
Wonderful. So that was so nice to hear this. That I would love to be a young child again and with the dyslexia, so I can come to your school and experience the entire
Everyone is
world.
welcome.
Okay? So Arun, it's so lovely to have you here. And I was just wondering you had difficulties related to, because you were a diverse brain. What were these difficulties that you faced? Would you like to tell us some of these difficult memories from your growing up years, and also maybe from your present time? Where did you get the support and for what you are today?
Yes, I so much wish I could have been in ma'am's school so that I would have got the right support. But unlike that situation, for me, it was a very difficult journey. I think so 20 years before I was in schools, and dyslexia was not there, and Hamper was not there, and there's no much of awareness. And everyone would label me as a slow learner or something on that sort. Till July, I will appear to be a very active kid because of my sports day. Whichever the team I'm in, I will win my 100 meters, 200 meters, and relay. And after August, I disappear because my marks come in, and I do write a lot of pages, and I could say that teachers will not be that much eloquent to read my paper. and and that would be difficult, and every time my mother will ask me how much you perform, and I will say 101 marks, and still I will get 0. So every year it was a journey that end of that academic year, management calls to my parents and say that I think so your child has some fundamental problem. He's not able to read and write. I think so you need to put in another school. So it's about 7 school is my journey. And it was a very difficult part wherein whenever it was a failure every day. Every time you attempt to read, you will fail, and everyone will smile, laugh at you at class, and you come out and you pick fights with them because they laughed at you. But inwardly, you really know that you are not able to perform like others. So that was a very a disappointing time, and my mother would take that effort to kind of push forward and put me into different tuitions. It will be school after school. So still it will be a difficult time when I see the marks, because all my efforts does not come out of as results. And I think so it was a very difficult time for parents, and it was also a very difficult time for myself itself to understand why and how it is happening so. And after seventh school, there were no other school my parents were like wanting to put me in. Then one final principal kind of opened the door, saying that this is a difficulty called learning disability, and it is called dyslexia. There is different places wherein you can go and do the assessment, and your child can also study in a different school in that sense. My father was against it, because I was putting him in all big schools, and now you are asking me to put in a small house, because that time Madras Dyslexia Association was in the house, and it's
Okay.
called Adanya that time. So he saw me. See, what are you doing? My son is. There's no playground. He only plays well. That also is not there in the school. It's his complaint. And then, for his this dismay, when we were wanting to get to have a medical board certificate, I was sent to Kilpock Mental Hospital. Then again, my father bounced on and saying, "Let's see, what is it? He is not mental to go there." But it was also, even for me, it was a very difficult situation, because back then I was 13 years. And when I went there and I started asking my mother, are you going to put me here? And there's a lot of self-doubt and a lot of difficulty, to kind of face it in your 13 years, and you didn't have that much maturity and so on. That is a difficulty, and sadly it's still the same. It's not changed, because recently in my 30 years I was wanting to get a medical board's disability certificate to get some grants. I went to previously Himanshu Das sir was the director there. I went there to get the assessment done, and then you need to go to disabilities department of Tamil Nadu to get that medical board certificate. So when I came back, I actually were in tears. Even now, I have a organization. I have a 40-member team. We are doing good work in identifying to giving the child intervention at their own homes. Many things we are doing, and I've passed through and everything. But still, after going to that place and coming back, I did still feel a self-doubt. Okay, am I disabled? So is it a gap? So it's very difficult till now also, ma'am, because I think so this umbrella term of uh, intellectual disability, dyslexia should not actually get into there, because the global phenomenon today, as you told, dyslexic thinking is a positive thing, as if every principal like ma'am is able to embrace every child in the school itself. They actually need not go anywhere out. Yes.
Yes, I think this is something we really need to reflect upon. That one, we say clearly, way back from the 80s, the definition of SLD has said it's average and above average in intelligence. The assessment talks about this. And now it has, after all these years of debate, it has gone back to be clubbed with ID. So it is in the public, in the professional arena, people are not very clear of all the work that has been done, and it is somehow going down the drain. So from what I hear, Arun, is that besides being invisible, nobody being able to see how you are different but still better than others in many ways, is a trauma, the mental trauma that it goes on. And we have miles to go and miles to go from what you are saying. Even after so many years, 2 3 decades, we are where we are, although I know the country has made a lot of way forward. Thank you. May I ask, Nooper is a, besides being a professional herself, she is a parent and an advocate for all children with SLD. Nooper, tell us, what does it take to be a parent of a child with SLD, dyslexia? Is it a 24/7 activity? How did you go about setting out a working environment for your child when the ecosystem of interpersonal dynamics is what we are hearing is not so very appropriate? Nupur.
Thank you, Renuji. I think, like all parents, parenting is, I think, a 36-hour job and not really a 24-hour job. You never outgrow it. Um, I think it's no different from that. I just think it requires a little bit of a different perspective and lots of learning about your child and a willingness to grow with them. Our journey, I come from a family where dyslexia runs in my family. I have a younger brother who's dyslexic, so I've grown up with it. And within our family, it was never a taboo. Um, we're one of those few families that sort of wear it on our sleeve and sort of shout out from the rooftops, oh, we're dyslexic, we have these powers. But the journey of when my daughter got diagnosed was a little bit different. So she's lucky to be in a school in Delhi, like which has a very inclusive and beautiful learning environment. So she was all of 8. We started seeing signs early as 6. We were having those conversations in the school. She was a very happy-go-lucky child, dancer, one of those ever smiling kids. And she came into grade 3. And all of a sudden, she went through this transformation as an individual. And I would come home to a girl who was constantly crying. And there was a breaking point where she turned around and told me, Mommy, please don't send me to school. I'm too stupid. I don't deserve to go to school. Sobbing away, scared out of her mind that she's not going to be able to do the task she's been asked. She has developed this notion that I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I don't deserve to go to school. And all she used to tell me is, Mama, why don't you remove my name from school so somebody more deserving can go? And this is an 8-year-old child, right? Going through all this emotional trauma. And I just couldn't figure out what's going on. And that's when, and I think it was triggered by one of the teachers in the community in the school. But I have to say that I could have made that my focus and gone to war at school. But the school came in and uh, Anuradha ma'am was mentioning, they kicked in as an army of who came in and sort of supported my daughter, supported us. And we went through the steps of getting her diagnosed, figuring out what is needed. And I remember how the teachers became protective of her. A remedial teacher was arranged. There was discussion on whether she should be put in the special ed program. And I was very keen that she should be put in. So, with this bias that she'll get more support. And the headmistress was like, please understand that your child doesn't really have a disability that is debilitating her. If you put her in the special ed program, you're going to remove her and kill the very foundation of her spirit. And we don't want that. We want to do things that empower her. So let's keep doing the interventions that are required. And she doesn't need to be in the special ed program. If we think she needs to be, we will move her. But you have to balance what you believe is academic expectations, the child's ability and strength, and then the mental health of the child and the emotional status, right? And I think that to me was very reassuring. And then, that sort of started our journey on how do you get the child to learn. Is so one of her teachers told Nitya, do you hate reading? Even I hate reading. And the teacher said, okay, you know what? Humans are like, people can be mean. Don't read to them. And we had got a puppy at that point, right? And she said, does your puppy know the stories that you enjoy? And Nitya's like, no. And the teacher was like, why don't you read to him? He will also learn. So that's how Nitya started reading practice, right? Like she would spend hours talking to this little Labrador who would look up to her like she's a goddess, and she'd be like reading her book out loud. And practice sort of started through that. And then there were teachers who sort of kicked in. We did the accommodations, maybe spelling tests were a challenge. So we worked on that. She doesn't need to do all the spelling. Of the 20 that were given, she would learn 10, that we knew would come. But in all of this, there was never an excuse of cheating. There was never an excuse of being lazy. I mean, you don't use your disability as a reason for not getting things done. And I think when you set up that culture, you create that the diligent that is needed for a child to succeed. That was one. The second was that, we never hid it. We were very proud of it. And, we sort of spoke to the people around us to explain to them how they can support. And Nitya was lucky she had this little group of friends. They were like these tots, 8-year-olds with two ponytails, right? Fighting with teachers like, how are you being mean to my friend? And like, why are you picking on her? Or like, okay, Nitya, you missed your notes, take my book. Like they had created that. And at the same, so, one of her best friends is a careless kid. Her pencil box will be one place, her water bottle will be one place. And Nitya is very organized in that. So Nitya used to collect her stuff and put it together while this girl used to do the notes and help Nitya with it. But the point is that they found balance of how to offset each other's weakness without the judgment and the inclusion. And that sort of helped because that I think more than my support has been instrumental in Nitya's journey in school because when you have those friends who have your back and are not judging you, I think it helps. And that is a creation of the environment that the school and the teachers have done. So, as we've grown older, we have these steps that we do. Every academic year, we do this meeting with all the teachers. We explain that they have dyslexia. Now the teachers know us and they say, oh, but we know that this is there. So that's a time to sort of catch up, set the milestones, figure out what we need to do. We often do advanced planning in the sense like grade 6, for example, is a milestone jump year, right? And we know that from this year to 8, there are going to be certain skills that the child needs to make. It might be more writing, it might be more memory work, exams get longer. So it becomes that we will start working with Nitya to build those skills patiently so that when she comes to grade 8, she will be better. And these sort of discussions are worked through. And then I think finally is the transformation happened for us last year, where, if anything went wrong in class, like she didn't get an accommodation or a teacher didn't, was not cognizant of her dyslexia, I would go and speak to the teachers and say, look, what happened? Why is this going wrong? And the and I would be very apologetic in terms of like, oh my God, can you please do this for my child? And the class teacher turned around and said, but why do you keep apologizing to us? This is your daughter's right. And you have to not be apologetic of it. And it transformed it, right? Like we've been working, I do a lot of advocacy, but never once did I sort of hit home that this is my right and my child's right. And then the teacher said, but why do you keep bugging me? Why is Nitya not coming and talking to me directly? She should be speaking up for herself. And I think that is so empowering, right? Like, because now I don't have the pressure of helping my child negotiating the space for her. And it gives her that onus. So I think as a parent, that has been my journey of figuring out.
Okay, so this is amazing. We'll get back again. So what I get from here, I hope we as audience, I'm observing, look at the type of traumatic situation. Here a parent who is so empowered, her child is doing well, her potential is being elicited. Here is a person who has dyslexia and who's doing, I mean, he has a company of so many people, 40, 50. But look at the traumatic situation when they speak. Even now the trauma is there. Is it the society? Is it the education system? What is it? What has gone wrong? We need to reflect on this. And these are wonderful schools and which have done great, which are learner centered. They're talking about advocacy. I hope there are all the schools and all the principals across the country are able to do this. Anuradha ma'am, may I ask you this question? What would be, I mean, you've said about embracing diversity. What would be your message to the school principals across the country to create mainstream inclusive education classes? May I club this question with another question for you? how does the conventional examination system create issues? So it's a lot of things that we need
Okay.
more principals like you.
Let me look at diversity first, right? So, if one was to learn from a textbook alone, your learning would be limited to what is produced between the covers of a text. Hmm? But if your entire school climate provides avenues for learning on every corner and opportunity, you transcend that limitation, right? So, if your class itself becomes, or your school becomes, a platform for celebrating the manifold traits, quirks, skills of pupils and teachers, cultural pluralism becomes mainstreamed, right? There isn't a child who doesn't have a special skill. If teachers could celebrate every child's special skill, children thrive. They don't hide behind curtains. And when that becomes the norm every day, children live with confidence, live with differences, and learn that the bonds that bind are stronger than the differences that separate. And that there is place and room for everyone to be recognized. Why children, even all of us, thrive on recognition,
Absolutely. Mhm.
right? We look for that recognition everywhere and feel very happy when we're even recognized in the market, by a friend. So why would a
Yeah.
child not look for that in their own life? So when the school has an outlook of celebrating every child, the colors of the school become not only rich but unique, and a wonderful tapestry of celebration is woven in, which gives it a dynamism and a happy climate. When the climate is happy, the children come running to school, and 3/4 of your work is done. Now, I'll just elaborate with two very small examples which perhaps set us apart. We teach many languages in school. The usual 3 language formula that is prescribed, we do. But between classes 6 and 8, all children need to pick up a 4th language. The bouquet that is offered to them is Gujarati, Tamil, Bangla, and Urdu. These languages are not taught from an examination point of view, and nor are they ever examined in the traditional format. The languages are taught for enhancing knowledge about India's pluralism, celebrating the various cultures that are associated with each language. And also note that each language has a very rich history of written work and culture. So whether it is the Nazm in Urdu, or Subramaniam Bharati's work in Tamil, Narsibhai's work in Gujarati, or Tagore's work in Bangla, there are rich literary heritage of each. Each year, the cohort that learns a language does a performance celebrating the beauty of the language, which is our examination. Right? So when you promote the art of celebration in various formats, the diversity becomes mainstreamed. We have another unique festival to the school. For every Indian, food is such an important part of our palate. So we have something called the food festival. There's also something more that is unique about the school. There is no event in school. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. So when we celebrate food, we ask families to come and share family recipes. So maybe it is a nanny or a daddy who is teaching a group of parents, maybe an Uriya recipe, maybe a Pati Shabda, or a Tamil, maybe Paisam. So with all this, why is it made at a certain time? Why is it sourced locally? So is it sustainable or not? What are the nutritional aspects of it? Why is it eaten at a certain time? To add to that, children are permitted to get only a certain amount of money. So they have to learn to share, they have to learn to sample, they have to learn to thank, and they've to learn to appreciate. Everything is geared with parents to share with them also that, this is not a fate, it is not a fair. Learning is our primacy and can only be done in environmentally sustainable ways. So you learn the economics of it, you learn the agricultural aspects of it, you learn the nutritional aspects of it, you learn climate, you learn geography, and of course you learn commerce.
Amazing.
Celebrating the diversity of India.
Wonderful, wonderful. I
So,
what
really,
you said. Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yes,
may
no,
just come in, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to go back to something Anuradha ma'am was talking about earlier.
yes,
Is
yes.
when she says every child has a skill, and it's important to encourage and recognize that. And I think as parents, when we get the diagnosis of dyslexia, and like as Arun mentioned, that it is an intellectual disability diagnosis, often it becomes a burden where it says, oh my God, ab mere bachche ka kya hoga? What is going to happen? Now I have this child who is limited and in that burden and in that bias, parents often start limiting the potential of the child. I don't think they do it intentionally, but I think as a parent, one of my biggest learnings has been to move away from what I believe success is and start looking and appreciating the things that my child is good at. So, for example, Nitya can dance for hours. To me, she learns for exams because she's a kinetic learner when she moves. She even learns by moving in step. And to me, this drives me crazy, right? Because I am brought up in that sit straight, back straight, pen se likho, table clear karo. I am brought up in that. And that just one of the teachers sort of explained the concept of kinetic learner. And now what has happened is she's merged her dance and learning together and is making a holistic learning environment for herself, which has led to her publishing a comic series that advocates for children for disability, right? And that creative pathway, had she followed my sort of regimen, would have never happened. So my point is, I think parents need to realize that just because you have an SLD diagnosis, it's not the end of the world. 40% of the world's self-made millionaires are dyslexic. My belief is that almost 90% of the world's innovations have happened because of a dyslexic mind. So you should thank them, right? The light, the telephone, the car, the plane. Recently we sent, humans, we did the space travel. Of the 3 entrepreneurs that did it, 2 are dyslexic. So computers, 24-hour news, it could be sustainable, beauty products. You name the change from, and that Walt Disney, it's dyslexia. So I think that notion that Anuradha ma'am talked about is skills, that every child has a skill. I think we need to appreciate that and break our own limitation of understanding that.
Good.
Right.
And
now, I'll just come back to the second question, right?
yes,
That
yes,
is
yes, yes.
conventional
Huh, huh,
exams.
yeah.
Now, we don't have exams in junior school at all. We have a system of continuous assessment that charts growth. If there is exhibited growth, your child passes. Through the rest of the school, emphasis is laid more on planning for the students. And this is something which we iterate and reiterate over time, that, an examination is really teaching you how to plan your learning. How does one execute one's plans? And emphasis is on the process of preparation rather than on the attainment. That attainment will happen when the time comes, when you have put in enough measure for the process. Now, each child is taught to value success of the process rather than a victory. And there is room for all. Now, if I could just explain that a little more, what I mean by that is there are no ranks in school. I set my goals. If I achieve them, I am successful. And in my success, no one is defeated. When you have this growth mindset for the children, they are unafraid of taking academic risks, unafraid of spreading their wings and trying out new avenues. And more than ever, peers lend a supporting hand to say, Acha, I've reached this, you also, come on, you will also reach it with me. So we usually say in school, we don't believe in a peak, but we believe in a plateau where there is room for all. Once you develop a growth mindset, there is no stopping.
Absolutely.
And peer support, cooperation is so wonderful to do all that. Do we have accommodations for children with special needs? Of course we do. That accommodation could take any form. Could it take limited syllabus? It could take exemption in spelling. It could be assisted with devices. You could have what our special ed team sits with the children, decides, the teachers will step in and follow. Could be oral learning. We tried something during the pandemic where the world was talking about examinations and how cheating happens online and doesn't happen online. We said, forget it all. Let's invert the process. So we started and worked very heavily on what we call self-directed learning. We got rid of many problems that were plaguing us in the initial days of going online. We said, children don't switch on the camera. If they switch on the camera, even for adults, it's very difficult to stay motivated and included in the conversation if your class is for 45 minutes to an hour. So we inverted it. We said, with the teachers, let's plan out and let the children present on the basis of their comprehension all lessons. And each group to make sure that every person in the group participated. If the children who needed extra help, the teacher would call them on a tutorial Zoom session, help them come up with the rest of the class. At the end of it, the children presented, every lesson, the children presented what they learned. The children made questions for their companions, and if the companions could answer, the group won. The one to the extent that they got, if all presented equally well, they got 5 out of 4. And boy, I can't tell you the fun of getting that 5 out of 4 for each of them. It brought back the joy of learning, although I'm not an advocate of any kind of online learning, but it helped us negotiate a difficult time with an innovative practice. So whether it is project-based learning, whether it is special assignments, we're not closed to anything when it comes to mainstreaming our children. Acceptance for all.
Amazing. So we were talking about all these new terms that have come up, universal design of learning. But here we hear all these speakers here talking about that universal design of learning is nothing new. It's been happening over the generations. It's just that there's a new name which has come in, which talks about that and we were talking about differentiated learning. So you learn this way or that way. The process is to be celebrated. And that's what universal design of learning has been saying. And innovation. That's what universal design of learning has been talking about. So it's already been happening. It's only that it's entered the textbooks now, I feel. Thank you, Joshi ma'am. Let me just come to the next question to Nupur. Why are many parents not able to provide the support that you have been able to create and provide, and they continue to struggle? What are these issues that the parents of a child with SLD struggles with?
I think there are multiple things that children have a challenge with. Um, I think often the focus is just on the academic performance and intervention, integration in school. And like Arun sort of highlighted earlier, it has a lot to do with the emotional well being of a child as well, and the self confidence, the acceptance that when a child says, my head is hurting, my hand is hurting, I really am not able to read, does a parent actually accept that as an excuse, or take it as an excuse, or accept it as a struggle? It's like saying when a child is getting weak eyesight, they start getting headaches. And then you take the child and say, oh, let me get the eyes tested. And it's normalized in that sense. Parents are not able to normalize the emotional impact of a child's learning disability. That I think is one of the big challenges and things that I'm still learning about now. Nitya is a teenager, and as a teen, I'm often negotiating with her. Are you doing teenage tantrum, or are you really, is this dyslexia speaking? And we have these tit-a-tats, but it's it can be very frustrating where to keep that open channel. That's one. The other is parents are often burdened with social pressure. you know, Classmates will say, oh, my child has read the entire Harry Potter series. And your child is not even reading the basic, you know, maybe whatever books. And you feel that sort of embarrassment in that competition. You may have an older generation that's saying, what nonsense are you talking? My gene pool is absolutely great. We are all intelligent people. My families have gone to the IITs and they are studying in the Ivy Leagues. And, this is all nonsense. This is new age drama. That I think is a big challenge in terms of the social stigma that parents have to negotiate with. And I think fundamentally, just that entire space is so complicated, right? Like you have to constantly be in touch with the teachers. You need to figure out what accommodations are needed. Often a school that is not very progressive will say, oh, we can't do that. We can't give a scribe. There's no extra time. They have to learn the spellings. If spelling nahi seekhenge, to how will they move ahead in life? You know, those kind of things we need to, that parents sort of struggle with. But I think acknowledging that your child has their unique learning pathway, start speaking to parents around you. And I know I'm going over time. I just have one more thing that I have been very vocal with the class community in terms of how my child's needs are. So we used to have these conversations about devices. Should a child be given a device, a phone? Why are they coming with an iPad? And there used to be this big controversy about parents sending their children. Now, Nitya has used an iPad all her life because it is a strong accessibility tool for her. It's how she communicated with us, it's how she kept time, it's how. So I had to fight my way where I used to allow with the parents saying Nitya will bring her smartphone to the birthday party. And but I had also to empower the parents there saying that this is what the use for the phone is. If you think she's violating that, please address it with her and highlight it to me. So I think those are things that you need to fight for your child as well to sort of help people walk through.
a way, you need to first understand the whole process and then sensitize the parents to this and form very clear, deep, what is right and what is to be done, what not to be done. Joshi ma'am, I know that you need to go for further for other activities. Would you like to say something which has been left out, um, or we can?
Right. I'll just talk about how the language, for us, the local language, early schooling in Hindi has helped. And I'd like to highlight as to how it has actually helped our children. We were part of a study that was done by Dr. Geet Oberoi of Orchids, along with her colleagues from Harvard, and published at the Harvard Review. This was a vertical study done over a period of 5 years to establish whether acquisition of the second language, which for us is in English in the primary, is hampered because the children learn in Hindi, right? And this study, we were not the only school. There were about 4 schools that she did her comparison in, but they were similar schools and similar children from a similar background in all 4 schools. So she took care of the control cohorts, etc. And it's a school which was ongoing and was recently concluded just before the pandemic. The results of this study showed that while in class 3, children from Sardar Patel Vidyalaya had better ideas and concepts in Hindi, by the time they, as compared to the other 3 schools, by the time they came to class 7, their concepts and ability to work in English were better than those of so-called English medium comparative schools of Delhi. So this big debate that seems to be going around as to will local language hamper or inhibit the acquisition of the second language is these stats kind of give an answer to a lot of questions about that. 2, because my children study in Hindi, their Hindi remains strong, but the acquisition of English becomes so much better. And Professor Maldia, you're aware of the results of the school, so I'm not, it sounds so like showing off if ever to talk about that. But the biggest advantage for me, the children learning in Hindi, is that it widens the scope of learning. The entire community, be it your nanny, be it your daddy, be it the Mali Bhaiya in school, all join in to provide you a larger teaching community. And built into that is dignity of everyone. So you can learn from anyone. Mali Bhaiya would know more about the plants than anyone else. And he becomes, in a very dignified way, a teacher for that aspect.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about diversity, this is an important aspect for us, right? The other thing that language does is, or talking in the mother tongue does, is it keeps us all so grounded and so able to communicate with everyone, irrespective of socio-economic background, in the milieu that we call India, my country.
Thank you. Thank you. So amazing. So the saying that says that it takes a village to bring up a child is what you are absolutely applying in your in your school, and therefore the children are able to, the children with dyslexia, the children with specific learning disability, are able to learn by multiple ways, and by using the universal design of learning, which you did not have the name there. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So much of enlightenment. Arun,
may I take your leave, ma'am, please, and of
sure,
everybody.
sure.
Thank
And
you all
please
so
join
much.
us back. We look forward to having you back again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Arun, I have read and heard that there is something called dyslexic thinking. And you now run an organization, DLearners, which has 40 plus people working there. Do you contribute your successes because of your dyslexic thinking?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely it is contributed. Why? Because this whole platform what we have built is for children having dyslexic thinking. As ma'am was mentioning, these children should be celebrated. So our tagline is celebrating different learners. So we
And there's
can
a lot of
call these.
technology you're using also, I
Yeah,
hear.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like more of making these children as celebrating them as different learners rather than actually making them as a problem child in the class. So that is a new perspective of thinking on that. And this platform allows the uh, the parent, like as for my case, I was sent to 7 different schools, and I was
That's
sent to
amazing. Seven.
and I've sent to a clinical setting, which is like a mental hospital, to get my diagnosis done. So all that could not be the way forward. Is I think so that I can owe for my dyslexic thinking, because now from this DLearners platform we can actually make a child refer the teacher refer to a child which is having difficulty in reading writing, and that can go to a parent from their own homes itself to understand what is this, and connect them to a special educator from their own homes. So this aspect of thought process itself evolved because of my dyslexic thinking, is what I could say, and my experiences what I've gone through. And imagine if all everyone this whole symbiosis of all these three people coming together and giving the right remedial care at their own homes, at the comfort of their homes of the child. And a special educator can be anywhere in India or the world to teach her or him in a gamified manner. So all that is just possible because I've gone through it, and also because of this dyslexic thinking only. And today in LinkedIn, there is a dyslexic thinking skill which is advocated. Like everyone can say I'm management professional, I'm a consultant and so on. And now there is also dyslexic thinking, and in dictionary.com, dyslexic thinking as a word itself is added today. So the whole world is looking at dyslexia or else these kind of learning difficulty as the lesser of the skill gap. Is just the skill, it's just reading writing as a skill. Today with a lot of assistive tools and technology, you can actually overcome that gap. But
Okay.
only
So,
the learning thing is what is to be celebrated. Is the thinking ability of the individual can be more celebrated. That way they actually, as Nupur ma'am told, car Henry Ford is a dyslexic. Everyone who have actually built big companies are dyslexic. So that the ability of thinking big, like Ernst and Young is a company which recruits dyslexic thinkers. Like they kind of recruit MBAs and all these consultants. They actually recruit dyslexic thinkers. So the whole world is going towards that. I think so. India can also go towards that, and make all the kids who are having these difficulties as to be celebrated as a different learner rather than to be labeled as a dull student.
okay.
So,
So that, yeah, sorry,
Professor
sorry.
Malavya, can I add to what Arun
Please,
was
please.
saying?
Yes,
Um,
Napur.
there
Yeah.
is there's an ENY study that actually mapped dyslexia strengths of innovative thinking, connecting the dots, um, problem solving. To those are some of them. To what is called the future of skills, that have been identified by the World Economic Forum, and they identified that all the dyslexia strengths actually map to the skills that we will be requiring to succeed in the future. And the current skills that we actually judge as prime are the ones that are likely to get automated by technology over a period of time. So I think it's absolutely critical to stop judging intelligence by the ability to read, spell, and write.
Very
I
true.
think that does not equate thinking. And parents, teachers, even individuals themselves need to accept that. There are multiple ways of intelligence which now need to be sort of discovered. And there are multiple ways of thinking. So we need to sort of appreciate those other. So I'll give you an example for architecture. In your architectural exams, it's not a math exam, but a perception exam. So some of the things you may be asked is, if you're standing in a balcony and there is a basketball game going on in front of you, draw that scene. Like if I were to do that, I would fail miserably. And it's not about the art of, how beautiful that girl in the balcony looked, how, colorful the ball was. It's more about, are you showing the ball being thrown? What is the perception? At what angle are you showing it? How are the, and these are things that dyslexic minds are actually very good at. So the Millennium Dome has been built by a dyslexic architect. It's one of the most popular professions for children with this. So I think our educational system in India often does not encourage these other thinkings, but we're seeing this change very, very quickly, especially with CBSE and the new education policy. There's a strong hope that these multiple skills will now start being appreciated and tested on.
Wonderful. So I see here is that the larger picture that, like both of you are saying that the innovators are large, 40 plus percentage of innovators and large company makers are dyslexic. So they're able to see the larger picture. They're able to visualize beyond what Einstein's E is equal to mc square. And so you also, I think I was right when I say in my classes that information is got from Google so easily. It is automatic. You should be able to construct knowledge in new, innovative ways. So the future of skills is what we have to look at. And then we have all these dyslexics who are being told, no, this is not the right skill to learn. So we have to relook at schooling all over again. And so coming from here, is there something we're talking about? If you were to select a board, a school board, which would be the best to give gradation to a child, what would you expect that board to be like?
So I think there is no right or wrong board for a child. I think like how with typical children, we are accepting of their different strengths and their abilities. We need to start thinking about our children who have learning disabilities in a similar way. There is no one solution for any child. However, different boards, both at the state, central, and international level, provide different levels of accommodations for children. And with those accommodations, they provide different levels of certification at the time of examination. And that needs to be evaluated by a parent when selecting that board, whether it is the National Institute for Open Schooling, whether it is CBSE, whether it's ICSE, IGCSE, IB, or any of the state boards. Some of the things that we evaluated were, if language is a struggle, do you need to do 3 languages, 2 languages? Can you drop a language? The other is, what are your other vocational options? What are your accommodations given while testing? Uh, are you allowed scribes? Are you allowed technology? Are you allowed extended time? Are you allowed alternative papers? Can you do different combinations of subjects? And I think those are things that you look at. One of the things I did not know, which I have recently learned, is some of the boards actually, when they give you alternative accommodations, they do not give you the main certification of that board. They may give you a diploma or a step below, and that may not be recognized by the college higher education process in India or globally. That's one. The other is that often in the ambition to maintain percentages, we make children drop subjects. So, for example, we may say, oh, maths you're not very good at. You can't get anything. You'll get that 50-60% average kharab hoga. Let's go for drop maths. But then The child may be doing very well in physics, may be ambitious to do engineering or technology or programming, and that skill may not be there. And the child will lose out in the future or wants to give an entrance exam, whether it's the CUET, which is the Central University Entrance Test, wants to give JE, wants to give the SATs, then that prohibits them from progressing as well. So the balance between the the academic performance percentages versus the skill and the interest of the child is something we also should negotiate when looking at boards.
Y-
And it's not just boards, it's also the school that you admit the child in. I appreciate the fact that not everybody has the luxury of choosing a school. But I think question, read, compare. Don't take the answer, oh, we cannot do that. That is not acceptable. In today's environment, I can guarantee you uh, that most boards have the accommodations the school doesn't provide it because it's out of
Correct.
their standard. So you must demand, you must learn, you must educate yourself to do that and talk to people. People are more than willing to talk without judgment.
And adding on,
Amazing.
I'll just take one
Yes,
minute.
please.
Sorry, ma'am. I know it's we are. I'm
No, no,
running.
no. We have
So
time. We have time, Arun. Please
okay.
carry on.
So
Hmm.
here, the as the boards, as the operations of the school happens in the school itself, like exams, everything happens in one's own school. Likewise, accommodation and all those things should be actually happening in one's own school, and the school's responsibility for including all kids. Like for instance, a universal screening, and when the kid is coming into the system itself, okay, these children need these exemptions, or these help, and these children need these things to be done. So likewise, for standards, for board preparation, for extra classes, or all these things school is focusing on, but that is catering to the 90% of them. But the 10% which is left out, which is having the kids are having certain difficulties or certain kind of support the school should need, it should be a norm in a school. Any board in that case should be that it's their responsibility to keep the kid in their own school till first standard to 12th standard, and make sure that kid is educated not only by knowledge gathering, but also by the skill gap, that is the reading, writing, whatever skills that they are lacking. So if that is combined together, and they should not be like moved to pillar to post to create a solution for it, because I feel when a kid is present in one school for 6 7 8 years, or 6 years at least minimum, till 8th standard, the schools will be numb for any kind of difficulty, and after 8th standard is when the schools will start saying that I think so your child has a problem, because they are looking at their boards and their results of the board and so on. If government, if bigger authorities focus on this, say that you are not supposed to actually send any kid outside, and it should be an intervention in your own school, what kind of exemption you need to give, what kind of accommodation you need to give. Why? Because you are the best person to understand the kid is in your campus for the 6 7 years. Why is an external person coming and doing so? So that ways it need not be like a disability certification, or else any kind of clinical testing, but more as an observatory study on the child, and then adding on to a special educator who was a RCI trained person to do a screening in their own school, or using a technology to do a screening. But my bottom line is a school should be responsible for the child's well-being, both academic knowledge and emotional, at their own schools, and it should not be someone else's responsibility. There should not be any special school, in my view. It should be all inclusive schools is my dream. But anyways, I think so Imanchuda sir and everyone else can tell more about that.
It's so good to put that, because any you are with NEP 2020, because that's what they're trying to say too, right? So yes, I do agree with you. Is somewhere that we in the education system, the special education wing is a very strong wing, like the psychology, like the physics lab or the biology lab, where they are the ones who take along the general teachers And sometimes I get this feel that the special educators overwork themselves. If they were to involve the entire education system, there would be some number of children who would be able to be very easily into the inclusive classroom. And that's what Arun and Nupur also seem to agree with me. And I somewhere, when you're talking, Arun, you had said something about you realized at one point of time that reading is a skill and it's not your intelligence. Do you want to elaborate on that? That would be the last 1 minute,
Okay.
and then we.
Yeah, so majorly why I really understood that reading is a skill is why, because when I submitted my paper in Notre Dame, Indiana University. So that time I could read it in my computer. I could tell in my computer and could type it for me, and I submitted and I got chosen to. And in the same way, when I took up classes in schools, classes in my own college, I used a projector and I did not write on the board. And I also stood to be the best lecturer award that year when I actually became a lecturer in Loyola. So all that is not restricting me or limiting me because I was not able to read or I was not able to write. It was all the assistive tech which could help. So that is in same way as Nupur ma'am was telling her daughter will have a tab everywhere. That's beautiful because the tab would actually, whenever I want to type something, I can tell it to the my iPhone and it will type for me and I will send messages off. So I feel this element of reading, writing is no longer necessary in the 21st century, the future. The future is more about what you think and how you are different and how are you solving big problems and how are you thinking differently and how are you thinking bigger. So I feel that is where if we go towards reading is just an allied required thing. And today and moving forward, more and more technology will improve that you can actually converse with one person in your own language and they will listen to whatever you're talking in their language. So which means language learning, everything will become AI empowered. I know I'm like too much talking in the future, but that's the truth. Would happen.
So anyway, SLDs talk in the future. They make the future. So I thank you so much about this.
Well said.
Now, RPWD Act 2016 has been a bone of contention for people uh, who are in the who work for SLD and who are SLD. So we have intellectual disability, and under that we have SLD and AASD. Would you like any recommendation for the next RPWD Act whenever it comes out? And that's the last question.
So to me, ma'am.
To both of you.
Yeah, ma'am. Nupur, ma'am, you want to say
Go
one
ahead,
thing?
Arun.
I would really tell this. I don't think so. Dyslexia or else SLD should come under disability. It is a difficulty.
Then you won't get any
No.
accommodations.
No, it is a
I
difficulty. That is it. That's my answer for it, because it's a difficulty. And today when the technology is so much advanced, and this reading writing can be easily adapted through another assistive tool, and why should it be disability? And
no,
why am I true?
go
Yes,
ahead,
Okay,
ma'am.
sir.
Nupur.
Sorry,
Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
Nupur.
I have a differing view on this. I think it is actually, I personally have an issue from the word disability in general, whether it is intellectual, orthopedic, or any other form. I think it is a diverse ability. And I think, but looking beyond nomenclatures, I think there is a very limited view of how SLD impacts individuals. I think it's not just about reading, writing, it is about executive functioning. I think children, for example, have a challenge looking at time. They may have auditory issues, sound issues. They may have issues of overstimulation. There are other challenges. Just like visual impairment has many ranges, SLD also has many. I think the view that an SLD has only certain manifestations is very myopic. We have
Yeah.
Agatha Christie, who's one of the world's most successful writers, who is a dyslexic. We have the founder of pediatric heart surgery, who is a dyslexic. We have some of the world's best comedians who are dyslexic. We have some of the world's best artists, Da Vinci, dyslexic. We have an Einstein as well. So the diversity of a dyslexic or an individual with SLD is as diverse as an individual uh, with who is typical. The other is it's often considered to be something that is curable. This is not true. It is a disability because it has a physical manifestation. The way the brain connects the dots are different in children who are born. As technology is evolving, we are being able to now see it on ECGs, we are starting to see it on MRIs, we're starting to see it earlier. We're able to now start looking at genetic markers. We are seeing this research come up. So my sense that this is to say that this is not a disability, I have a very strong opinion around it. Around whether it's intellectual, do we need to create a new criteria? To me, that is not as important as the fundamentals that go around how is it diagnosed, what is the support that is given, but the fact that it is recognized. I do understand the repercussions of it being under intellectual, but it is better than it not being there. We negotiated very hard in the space for 2016. The World Convention on People with Disabilities also lists learning disabilities under intellectual. I think the definition that intellectual means only low IQ may also
No,
need to
doesn't.
evolve.
Yep,
It may also
absolutely.
need to evolve. I think that in the ID equals MR, conversation may also need to be broken. But
Absolutely.
I'm not an expert in that. But as a parent, I cannot be more grateful that the fact that today my child has that recognition, has that support, uh, and has the foundation where I can go out and say, this is my child's right. No different from a child whose right it is to have a ramp for their wheelchair. And to me, that is very empowering.
Absolutely. So we wind up here. So very important is that we can go on with this debate, but as of now, we do need SLD to remain with the whole categories of different disabilities there, so we can move forward. Maybe a century from now, we will think about putting it away from there. But the debate about diversity and disability does remain. As we are assimilating the pertinent points and suggestions stated by the experts, may I request Dr. Himanshu Das to contextualize the way forward for this webinar, in particular, and the entire national webinar series with your in-depth administrative and grassroots experiences across so many disabilities. Please enlighten us as to what you contextualize as the way forward for the specific disability. Uh, Dr. Himanshu Das.
Hi, Namaskar, ma'am. Namaskar, everyone.
Namaskar, sir.
It's a proud privilege to be part of this national webinar series on SLD, uh, especially this fifth one on reflections, voices of families, schools, and individuals with learning difficulties. My salutations to IUFA and Lady Urine College for giving me this special opportunity.
Sir.
Asa Chandra Madam, Professor Renu Madam, Dr. Arun Fernandez ji, Anuradha Joshi ji, Nupur Junjunra ji, and Sarla Manchanda ji. All of you had been mentoring the field of SLD for a long time, that everyone knows those who are actually working in the field of SLD. And also to all other trustees, board members, faculties of IFA and LIC, esteemed participants, professionals, teachers, and parents. I really don't know how to do it because you had so many experts from across the country and they were all so very genuinely being chosen. There is actually nothing left out. It can be only my perspective. It's very difficult to pinpoint things. I have been very patiently listening to many of these webinars that Madam had been very kind to give me the links. Actually, the journey itself, I think, somewhere got confused as far as this country is concerned. the learning difficulties, they needed social educational justice, and they needed educational empowerment for a long time. And we failed to provide that, and instead we focused more on social justice and empowerment. That is the key element that all of us must understand. The focused, maybe 90% of the focus must go into educational justice and empowerment, and maybe 10% remains with social justice and empowerment. Currently, it is other way around. That thinking must go out if we really want to achieve something for persons with SLDs. Sometimes things comes to my mind. What if audiobooks are everywhere? What if voice command writers are everywhere? What if voice command calculators are everywhere? What if it becomes all skill and competency based curriculum? What if it becomes multiple streams of learning? What if it becomes interdisciplinary multiple streams of learning like IITs are offering today? What if art and co-scholastic and IT overrules all the disciplines that you are talking about? And we are seeing that 99% jobs are these days becoming competency and skill based. They are private jobs, so definitely they are working on competency and skill based, and they are based on particular sector skills. They're not worried about what you have inside, how much qualifications you had, what marks you had in which subject. We are just talking about the skill set that I need for my sector, for my employment. And very rarely you will find these employers are asking for your skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Rarely you will find that. So when you redefine learning today in a modern society, where does reading, writing, and math stands is a key question that all of us need to understand. Many of my colleagues had been sort of stressing upon these points. I just thought I'll make it more paraphrase kind of a thing to give out this outlook. Now, coming from special need, we started understanding learning disability from special need perspective, and then evolution stated disorder, and then it became a disability. I'm fine with the word disability also, provided we are not carrying it too far in terms of what we need. Now the act is giving us, say, educational reservation, say job reservations. What are we trying to indicate through that? And I don't know what calculations people are doing around. If you truly start calculating how much is your educational reservation, it will come to 0.25% seats educational reservation. And we all know SLD might be 10% or even more. What difference it is going to make when you say there is only 0.25% reservation in education? And what difference it is going to make when you will say it is 20% difference in the job? So you are trying to identify job and trying to say SLD cannot do this job and can do this job. This no SLDs will ever accept. If you ask a person who is SLD, if I tell him that you are not, your job, this particular job is not suitable for you, not identified for you, I don't think so in today's world they are going to accept that. But we have done this. This is a gazette paper. It's in the website. If you see, we have listed down so many jobs that SLDs cannot do. And this is some kind of a government of India order, which we may have to revive. And I don't know how many decades it will get to revive that. And that also, there also, you are just trying to say that you have only 0.20% reservation in government job. What difference it is going to make to lives of my 10% friends with SLDs? Now, these are questions that we need to really put up at higher forum and discuss, because I do not, sometimes I feel we are not part of this forum, because neither do I am a parent nor I am a person with special need, but I would like to get into these debates and try to understand things more. Now, when you talk of the survey of India, now, school teachers, primary school teachers, Anganwadi workers, and a lot of grassroots people are going to be surveying persons with special needs or persons with disabilities. How much hopeful are we that this SLD population is ever going to be surveyed in India? So what procedure are we going to follow? We call it NSSO survey. So right now we are following kind of 10-year-old NSSO survey, because that decides what kind of steps we should be moving forward in the next decades. Talking of screening, diagnosis, and certification, it's also a very big issue. The reason being, all of us are relying on tools. Now, government defines disability, benchmark disability in two different ways. I have some kind of learning disability, maybe 20%, 30%. From government perspective, I am not getting a disability certificate. I should be given a disability certificate when I have 40% disability. Which is that tool in India which gives you 40% disability or 80% disability or 90% specific learning disability? No such tools have ever evolved in India, nowhere in the world as on date. So I really don't know whom to actually give. So we give an order, whosoever you feel like or whosoever you feel has somehow crossed that criteria, you give a certificate. I don't know how that is going to help the certification process across the country. And also non-availability of special educators in the SLD segment, and also clinical psychologists and rehab psychologists at district levels. The picture is very, very doubtful how we are going to give UDID certification to everyone around. Now coming to specific learning disability and early intervention. Which curriculum? Like we have speech therapy, BSc, we have occupational therapy, we have physiotherapy, we have special education, we have general B.Ed, general D.Ed, so many curriculum. Show me a curriculum which actually addresses early identification and early intervention of SLDs. I'm not blaming anyone, but it's a very big question to be getting these people and training them actually early identification. The reason being, when you define and try to talk about the person should be failing in subjects and not being able to read and write for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then you have a significant gap, and then you talk of SLD, where is the question of early intervention? So if you have so many markers and so many developments that you can really work out at the age of say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, our identification certification age is not below 8 years. So the whole lot of 8 years is gone in the process of early intervention. It's a very big area that we need to address. And also when you talk of exemptions, vis-a-vis accommodations, vis-a-vis reasonable accommodation, what are we asking about? You will have a parent group saying we want just some kind of reasonable accommodation. Then another group will come and there will be debate on no, we need a lot of accommodations. Then there will be another group which will come and talk of no, we need exemptions. Then another group will talk of a lot of reservations. So we are in a conflict of interest in all this. But however, when you talk of universal design and universal accessibility and universal design for learning, all these things can be addressed. And they have been well addressed in many developed nations of the world. Like I had severe kind of hyperactive disorder or whatever, I don't know. Likewise, I was changed to schools, and then my parents will throw me to my relative's house, and they will also throw me to another relative's house. Finally, all of them decided best school in Assam for me would be a Sainik school. It was a glorious period of my life, because morning 6 to night 12 o'clock, they will ask me to do a number of things, running around, jumping around, playing sports, this and that. And the only goal was to somehow pass from one class to another, and somehow nobody is getting sort of a kind of a penalty or a big punishment. With that goal, somehow I cleared my 12th, and life went on like that. So the whole perspective of this school was development of all-round personality and all-round skills. So I was somehow saved. Now, coming to this educational reservation, job identification and job reservations, I would recommend maybe we get into a forum back to understand all these things, because everybody would be guiding people differently. Now, we cannot have different guidelines for different boards. Now that we have got an act, we have got a national policy of education, every board cannot be doing whatever they wish to do. Now, Supreme Court has asked the Higher and Technical Education, UGC, to have a 360-degree guidelines being made. Now, there we need these provisions. We have got a Supreme Court case where they are asking for digital accessibility and online education guidelines. We have got a well-established segment where we call it SEDG, socioeconomically disadvantaged group. There also somewhere down the line, SLD is part of it. So those guidelines needs to be strengthened with the whole community being involved. Unless we come to that, these debates will go on and on. And also now we are talking of so many things. Now the world is moving to skilling and entrepreneurship. If the world is moving to skilling and entrepreneurship, why there is so much of debate working around the education of the child? Look at the ratio of how many child with learning disability actually has got into the NSDC curriculum of skilling. What is the percentage of admission in those curriculum? I don't know how many of you are aware. Today, without any basic education, I can have a PhD from a skilling university. I am doing plumbing. So in the plumbing segment itself, I rise skill level 1, 2, 3, 4, and I am equivalent to a PhD professor. So that is what is the national curriculum framework going on for last 5 years. What are the focus of this particular group that we are talking about in acquiring and debating on those skills? We are talking about NSDC curriculum. And also the entrepreneurship skills. If you look at the, say, NHFDC or banks or any other segment of working out on entrepreneurship, what is the convergence of SLD vis-a-vis those entrepreneurship organizations and loaning organization or whatever self-employment options? We're not working on those segments. Instead, we are focusing still on the deficit areas all the time. It is reading, writing, and arithmetic all the time. And then we keep debating on these three issues everywhere, and all the segments where we can actually excel. We are only, I think, talking about lip servicing because the statistics is very clear. We are not moving in those directions at all. No parents are moving, no organizations are moving, and we are also not moving. Now coming to family inclusion. Now, every family of child with specific learning disability must have a common forum and a common format of understanding what is SLD. Now, if you take example of 5 families, all these 5 families will define SLD and their future and the life cycle approach for understanding SLD in 5 different ways. And they would further be confusing another hundreds of parents in their lifetime as to what they feel SLD is. So what kind of family inclusion we are talking about? If I have diabetes, how the family is accepting diabetes is very, very important. Now, if every family will treat diabetes in n number of different ways, we don't say there had been family inclusion. So my family taking a diabetic patient to around the world to cure diabetes, it means the family itself had not accepted my problem. As my friend very well said, Arunji, that till he was about 14 years of age or something like that, the family was not accepting. So that's the core of it. Family inclusion is very, very important. We need to work on that. Then comes question of community inclusion. This community inclusion can be taken up at a different forum, because if everybody in Facebook and social media keeps talking of different things about learning disability and trying to make us gyan or super gyan on SLD and what it is and what it should be doing, I think 2 disabilities are misleading. These parents and NGOs and so-called experts are misleading the whole country. One is SLD, second is autism. As if the whole world is responsible for what it is and nobody knows what needs to be done with that. And also inclusion at higher and technical education, and education is one area. It's high time that we start focusing on, because government has opened up the space somehow. Now, IIT seat reservation, say there will be seat reservation of 20 reservations in IITs, 1% is reserved for, say, so-called different disabilities. Intellectual disability, autism, multiple disability, SLD, mental illness, all will comprise and go into IITs to fill up that 1%. I'm very sure it is the good time for the SLDs to move into IITs, say. So higher and technical education, because the rest of the disabilities are less likely to reach that level. I'm sorry to say that, but all of us know this. They might have problems and issues which are much more severe than this SLD group. So how do you take advantage of this in higher and technical education is one issue. And also inclusion in adult life. When you talk of specific learning disability, I have come across people, those who might be also having adult-related issues, maybe family-related issues, maybe marriage-related issues, maybe whatever issues. So it's not a gamut of only the reading, writing, and arithmetic part. It may have a higher gamut, which we need to understand. And also emerging education versus SLD. So if educational system has immersed, who has not immersed? It is the teacher and the principal who has not immersed. It's not that the educational system has not immersed. They are giving so many options. Who is not implementing those options? Options are not being implemented by us. This us refers to the teachers and the parent also, quote, because they are demanding the wrong things most of the time. And there is a flush of so many parents after this RPWD Act came, they want certification of SLD. Now, all of you can understand, need not to say why they want the certification. Instead of focusing on his development and all those things, now many of these people are seeking reservations. And I'm very sorry to say many of these are actually borderline ID population, not SLD population. So there is a question that we need to answer, and also the rural and urban divide in SLD. When you talk of SLD and all these organizations and all these people, you are basically talking about the rural and urban area, and most of the time 99% of this goes to the urban sector. Nothing is being done with the rural sector. And in the urban sector also, bearing very few province or bearing very few districts, the poor people, poor schools do not know what SLD is, as if our domain is restricted to urban rich or urban middle class. That's how I think in the specific learning disability population itself, 99% of our population, we are sort of marginalizing, and this marginalization is being done by you and me, not by those people, those who are living in rural areas and those are poor. And also now currently, as my friend very well put it up, digital divide in SLD. Now you are so strongly putting up the point that if I get blah, 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 blah instruments, blah, 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 blah facilities, I can function like anybody else, or I can surpass anybody else. Under such circumstances, what happens to the digital divide? 90% of the families of this country has one mobile. Now, who accesses this mobile? Father, sometime it comes to the mother. How you are expecting the three children to be on online and digital education and so on and so forth with this just one mobile device? So this digital device versus SLD is a very key element with advancement of science and technology and assistive technology. We need to question this and get all those things necessary that can reduce this digital divide, because an upper middle class or a middle class or a elite class family is actually moving towards digital inclusion, and the larger population, I would like to put it up, maybe 95% of my population, those who actually need this device, they are not getting. And also we need to re-understand the question of equity. Now, specific learning disability deserves equity in relation to the peer. Now, what equity you are talking about? Which are the areas where you want equity? Because sometimes what happens, overprotection and over equity sense leads also to marginalization more and more. So we want peer and the SLD both to be at equal level. So that equal level equity needs to be re-understand. And also now, when you talk of equity versus SLD, if I ask you this question as a compassionate or an empathetic professional to everyone, what about the borderline ID people? You have IQ of 90 plus and you have SLD. I have got an IQ of 78. Who deserves more equity, you or me? A large question, because by and large, intellectually and in the social functioning, this gentleman or this child with IQ less than 80, more than 70 or so forth, will have far, far more challenges in life and deserves far, far more equity than this specific learning disability child who might be having an IQ of 130 and having maybe issues with reading and writing. So that equity question also needs to be answered in reference to, say, autism, borderline ID, multiple disability, intellectual disability, deafblind, and so forth. So we have got a segment in ourselves, those who want equity, and that equity actually is trying to surpass the equity of those who are having far more and difficult disabilities than specific learning disability. Because as my friend well said, learning disability needs are entirely different from rest of the disabilities we are talking about. So these disability, the concept of equity needs to be redefined. So I foresee a lot of awareness is required in the field. How do you create awareness? Maybe this forum and all these experts, big people, we can come up with awareness modules for different stakeholders. I'd be very happy to be part of this mission, because general teachers would need a different kind of a module. Special teachers, non-SLD special teachers would need a different kind of module. Maybe principals and higher education people would need a different kind of module. Doctors and social workers or different machineries at different level might need a different kind of a module. We have got a generic module on disability, which is in the DPWD website under a particular scheme for awareness. But specific learning disability is a very complex thing, neurodiversity, to understand. So maybe a special module is required. Now, coming to empathy. Without empathy of the peer and the teacher and the principals, things will not move. That all of us know very well. Now, empathy development exercise, empathy engineering needs to be taken up on top priority. So there are a lot of research on this. How do you actually engineer empathy in teachers and headmasters and the peers? It's not only by texting or having a storybook that empathy development engineering would happen. So I strongly feel there was a school in Delhi. We went for some kind of empathy development exercises and gave students the task of preparing and adapting TLM for the special needs children. I forgot because this workshop was done long back. So about 7-8 years later, I get a call from this principal asking me to stop this project. I said, why? This was a very nice project going on. Why do you want to stop this? The principal said that we do not have enough storage rooms to store all these TLMs, these students, peers are preparing. So that can be impact of an empathy development program. So we can come up with some kind of modules for different classes at different sort of intellectual age level, and try to bring up some exercises for empathy development for everyone. Now, coming to human resource development, a child with learning disability would have needed more support when the child was in primary stage. Now, why do all these experts combine together in the field of SLD never demanded a DED in special education in learning disability? We have a DED in special education in every disability. Why not in learning disability? It's a big question. You have got a BEd where the child may need lesser support. BEd means secondary education. Secondary education, special education, we have. Masters, MEd in specific learning disability, we have. We do not have DED. Now this DED, because it was not having anything, now DED ID, some components, now we are clubbing with SLD. This is not going to help because the needs are very different. We need to work on that core resource persons, because the moment I am a special need teacher for ID, my whole perspective of dealing with people changes, because the whole structure of understanding IEP and understanding the person and the need of the person, everything differs. So that is one area. So core human resources in special education, occupational therapy, clinical and rehab psychology needs to be questioned and redone. And this is the right time with NEP 2020 that we redo this thinking. And also the other non-core human resource development that we're talking about, general teacher, the school head, and the social workers, those who are working, also needs to be reworked out, because a very less part of curriculum of DED and BEd in general education covers disability. And on that also, you are now talking of 21 disabilities and another 20 disorders. So 40 kind of disabilities, you are just putting up in one small paper or one small practical exposure. That's not going to serve the purpose, because we expect each child with SLD in a regular school. That's for sure. There is no concept of opening up special school for SLD. So that's need to be answered. And also equal opportunity cell in the universities and higher education, which has become a mandate now. They also needs to be empowered with what SLD is. And also the SEDG guidelines, and SEDG cell that we have in every higher and technical education, that also needs to be strengthened as far as advocacy is concerned. And separate module needs to be built on advocacy for SLD. That my friend Fernandez sir will be the best person to do, because unless we develop a advocacy module, all of us will be advocating different things. Now, everybody advocating different things will confuse every board, every teacher, and every principal and every employer. So let's get into an advocacy module, exactly what we want to talk about ourselves and our future. So parent training programs also in terms of acceptance of the difficulty, expectation from the child, strategies and the planning for the child. This also needs to be developed as a specialized module, because we have a lot of books in SLD, but when you talk of actually a parent's journey, how a parent can be taken up with all those coping issues of, say, shock, denial, anger, acceptance, and finally coming to the stage of empowerment, it's a huge task. It's a huge task, and there is no such module for a parent to actually read, because they would be all sort of depending on various messages in the YouTubes and Facebooks, and all of us know that everybody is open to becoming an Oxford PhD scholar as far as social media is concerned. So somewhere down the line, let us give it to everyone that this is the advocacy module that you want from the SLD group perspective. And also from the child perspective also, we need a module definitely on basically positive psychology development and mindfulness for the child. The rest of the things today or tomorrow will be managed. Now we have a gentleman here who must have had extreme positive psychology and he could survive. What about rest of my 90% friends with SLD who lost the war? Because you have lowered my self-esteem, lowered my confidence, and I actually became a depressed person, as a person with a lot of anxiety and a lot of mental health issues. And where is the question of accommodation, adaptation, reservations, and anything? Because I gave up. So this is one area that we need to do, because I strongly feel a person without any kind of support from anybody in the universe, if the person is very strong from inside, he will find a way. I don't need an association. I don't need a board. I don't need anything. I'll find a way. Even though you give me a 10 fail certificate, still I'll build up an empire, provided I have got a very positive psychology and I'm strong with mindfulness. Also siblings. So we need to also work with siblings. So maybe we can have a small module for siblings also. So there's a lot to say. Time is very less. So I hope I had done a little bit of justice to whatever assignment was given to me. So I'll be very proudly privileged to be part of any kind of gathering that we are talking about, and any kind of movement that this forum will carry forward. Thank you so much. Dhanyavad. Namaskar. Ma'am, your mic is mute. Ma'am, your mic is mute.
We are definitely going to take you on this, and we thought you would give us a way ahead where we wouldn't have to do too much of work, but you have actually outlined a lot of homework for us, and the questions that you've raised are very pertinent, and all of us will try and work on this. You see different modules, and first of all, to be able to explain what exactly is SLD, to start from there. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as because of lack of time, I could go on and on. I move to the last part of the webinar. That is I hand over the mic to Sarla Manchanda to give the vote of thanks on behalf of AIWEFA. Sarla Manchanda has rendered selfless service to this organization, AIWEFA, for over 2 decades. She has served AIWEFA in different capacities, such as executive member, joint secretary, and vice president. Currently is a senior executive member. She's the former associate professor of household and textile chemistry at Lady Irwin College, University of Delhi. She has organized many activities of AIWEFA, such as 9 solar fairs in Haryana villages, seminars on green and solar energy in Delhi. Nina Sibyl Award selection process and the execution of the entire function has been done by her for the last 18 years. She has conducted workshops in schools and colleges on intergeneration bonding, on cybersecurity awareness, workshops on drug addiction, prevention awareness, and so on. She would have easily covered more than 50, 60, 70 workshops. Over to MS Sarla Manchanda.
Dear friends, a good day to all of you. On behalf of AIWEFA, I thank you all, the eminent panelists and the audience, for attending the webinar from the comfort of your home without bothering about the scorching heat outside. As you all know, this is the 5th webinar in the series of 5 webinars, national webinars on SLD. The 4 webinars held so far in this month have been extremely successful, and so has been today's. I really thank Dr. Renu Malviya to conceptualize webinars on such topics and areas of dyslexia which were not well known hitherto. Also for the way she moderated all the webinars and posed questions to the experts to extract correct and complete information and knowledge about these. All the experts were par excellent and explained complex terms related to SLD like dyscalculia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, etc., in a very simple layperson's language. Based on their vast knowledge and experience in the field, they gave a lot of suggestions to families, caretakers, teachers, and special educators as how to assess and diagnose the problem and the ways to handle such children. Whatever be the knowledge, research, experience, expertise, it becomes valuable only when there are takers or beneficiaries. Today's webinar was a special one and more meaningful in the real sense because we had speakers from SLD foundations, social advocates, and educationists. It was really an interactive webinar. I really thank Mr. Arun Fernandez, who recited his own experiences of being dyslexic and feeling proud and happy today to be a successful person. He is the director of the DLearners, the organization, and he has emphasized on the benefits of the technology available today to be more successful in this field of making people aware and even providing employment to about 40 people. And he doesn't feel that the 3 R's, the writing, reading, and arithmetic, were any problem or any hindrance in the growth of the person with a dyslexia. He has emphasized on the dyslexic thinking rather than recognizing the words and be able to write them or recite them. That is the secret of his success, and he advocates this success for other dyslexic persons. I appreciate Ms. Nupur Jhunjhunwala, founder and trustee, Change INKK, who has been a social advocate and mother of a dyslexic child. She has recited all her experiences and told us that how the support of the family, the peer group, and the school and school teachers and principals, they all help the child to grow into a normal child. She is a great advocate of inclusive education. Then I sincerely thank Dr. Anuradha Joshi, which emphasized that the importance of mother tongue, what you can convey or you can do if you have the knowledge of your mother tongue, your sphere of knowledge, how it increases so fast. You can understand any other language or any other area of education once you have the basis of your mother tongue. So especially if you have your mother tongue in the early stages of your education, you are open to understand and learn anything in this world and can get trained in any area of your liking. Then I also thank Dr. Himanshu Das. As a matter of fact, I have no words to appreciate the way he brought up all the problems faced by the dyslexic people, all the boards, and how they interpret this problem, and how it is not so easy because each dyslexia case is a different from the other one, and any disability, whether it is intellectual disability or it is a dyslexia difficulty, they are all different and all need different solutions, and what are the various problems you faced at different levels of certification, etc. So I think today's webinar was really very informative and very, very useful, and created great awareness amongst all the audience. I very much like to thank IWFA President Ms. Asha Chandra for her unconditional support and guidance to all IWFA activities, pushing the organization today to a high level position, top position, and delivering the welcome address in this webinar. The webinar would not have been possible without the involvement of Department of Education of Lady Irwin College and the all-round support of the student interns from the Department of Education as well as from other departments of Lady Irwin College. I also thank the administrative team of IWFA and Ms. Asha Ahuja in particular, and also thanks to our media partner, Voice for Ability. A special thanks to Dr. Manisha Sabharwal for connecting IWFA to the sponsor, Shrimati Shubhlata Jain and Mr. Arman Ali for guidance. At the end, I will conclude that all these webinars were successful in creating awareness about dyslexia and related issues, and we need many more such programs. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sarlam Manchanda. In the Google form, we have, please fill up the Google form for those of you who need an e-certificate. And also in the chat box, please put in suggestions for further webinars and webinar series that you would want IWFA to organize. Thank you. Till we meet again. Goodbye, one. Goodbye, all. Goodbye.